For those of you brave enough to venture into the dungeons and raids of Outland, you'll soon discover the enemies you face within are far more otherworldly than those fought back on Azeroth. Exotic beasts only found on the remnants of Draenor, demonic invaders from realms far beyond, and warped anomalies that defy explanation are just a few of the categories of enemies you might encounter. A true reflection of the Burning Crusade expansion and its unique take on fantasy in a dimension far from home. But among these dozens of bosses is one entity that continues to disturb and intrigue me nearly 2 decades after it was first released. A boss that leads to more questions than it answers and is a prime target for analysis and theory crafting. Today, I want to investigate the Reliquary of Souls, Outland's most mysterious raid boss. With Phase 3 of TBC Anniversary just around the corner, I figured this would be the perfect time to reacquaint you with this encounter and give you some things to think about as your raid gears up for the fight. As always, thank you for the fun comments and support, and with all that being said, let's get right into it. The halls of the Black Temple reek of anguish and sorrow. Once a holy place of Draenei society, now conquered and transformed into a dark citadel lorded over by Illidan Stormrage. Following an initial assault at the gates of the temple, raiders enter the remnants of Karabor through the sewers, encountering the archetypes of foes fought across Outland leading up to this point. You battle the High Warlord of the Naga clans, a fel-infused dire orc unlike any seen before, and demons of the Burning Legion turned to serve in Illidan's army. This is the Illidari seat of power, and like most instances in WoW, it acts as a climactic summary of content you've dealt with out in the open world on your leveling journey. But as your 10 or 25 person group enters the Forsaken Temple and begins cleansing it of evil on your way to the summit, there is one obstacle that is not like the others, or really anything else on Outland for that matter. The Reliquary of Souls boss is tucked away in the Shrine of Lost Souls, down a passageway literally cracking from the force of unstable energy. You turn the corner, finding a large chamber with 3 of the iconic statues seen on either side of the dark portal, cloaked and faceless. Tortured souls soar through the hall, not too different from the ones seen in the Auchenai crypts a few zones ago. In the back lies one of the strangest creatures imaginable, a writhing mass of something contained within a cage chained to the back wall. The cage itself isn't really a part of the fight, but it is its own NPC called the Reliquary of the Lost, and it has unique animations, including one to spawn the actual boss encounter. You cautiously approach, and the mass roars to life, unleashing a strange floating face called the Essence of Suffering. This is actually the first of 3 faces tucked away in this odd amalgamation, and your raid will not only need to beat Suffering, but also Desire and Anger to complete the boss fight. In between these main phases, the boss spawns in several lost souls to crash the party, giving you a different type of challenge but also a chance to recover your bearings and prepare for the next fight. Once all 3 phases, or should I say faces, have been defeated, the figure crashes to the ground and the raid is free to move on. It's not the target of any quests, drops pretty standard raid loot, and we know next to nothing about it from an official lore perspective. So what is up with this thing? Well, the first connection to make is that the boss obviously has something to do with the souls of the dead, spirits who are unable to move on because of their torment. Much like how the Dark Portal was initially powered by the souls of executed Draenei, I believe the Draenei slain here by the orcs at Karabor were so heavily concentrated and so wronged that their life force, their emotions, and their energy all coalesced here in the temple, forming the basis for this entity known as the Reliquary. While some of the boss's voice lines, and the Essence of Anger's face, are references to the 80s arcade game Sinistar, they also give us some insight into the mental state of this creature, perfectly fitting for the pure distilled emotions of suffering, desire, and anger.
Don't leave me alone! I didn't ask for this!
You can have anything you desire, for a price. Fulfillment is at hand.
Beware, I live.
It should also be noted that the game files denote this creature as a Devourer, though this name isn't used in-game for the boss, and it isn't even categorized as undead or anything, which is odd. It's really in a class of its own. This concept also reminds me of a black hole, a concentrated mass of souls so powerful that it wants nothing more than to absorb more. As the carnage and misdeeds of the temple accumulate, the Reliquary's tormented energy grows as well. The game's next expansion, Wrath of the Lich King, actually backs up these initial ideas quite well. In the dungeon called the Forge of Souls, where soul energy is literally blended together to create abominations for the undead scourge, the final boss is a nearly identical creature called the Devourer of Souls. Same face swapping feature, and similar voice lines, though according to an archived Blizzard webpage, it has a more defined purpose than the one in the Black Temple. As the chief operator of the Lich King's soul grinders, the creature called the Devourer dedicates himself to preventing souls from escaping the Lich King's dark machines. With the Lich King being a master of death and souls in many ways, it makes sense this Devourer, crafted from countless victims of the Scourge now stuck in limbo, is able to be controlled by Arthas to serve here in Icecrown Citadel. This one isn't even chained to the wall, giving us even more evidence of this. Which brings us back to the Reliquary, as there's not much more we can gather from Icecrown other than these few observations. There have been some interesting lore theories developed over the years about this place, and when considering all the evidence ever added into the game, I think they definitely have some weight. The first is that the Shrine of Lost Souls, and by extension the Reliquary boss, are a source of energy that can be used to sustain those suffering from magical addiction. The second is that the area exists as it does because one of the mythical vials of eternity was dumped into the chamber, supercharging the spirits and their energy to an insane degree. During the Caverns of Time attunement questline from the Burning Crusade, here's what Sori Dormi tells you of the vials and their fates. 7 vials were drawn from the Well of Eternity by Illidan. He poured 3 into the lake on top of Mount Hyjal, and a second Well of Eternity was created. For years, the rest were believed lost. With the opening of the Dark Portal, we've come to know that he gave 1 each to his lieutenants Kael'thas and Vosh. This dialogue fails to mention that the 6th vial was used to create the Sunwell by the High Elves long ago, leaving the 7th and final vial officially unaccounted for. This could be an oversight, or a deliberate mystery set in place by Blizzard to be addressed another time, but information added in later expansions seems to confirm the 7th vial was absolutely used here in the Shrine of Lost Souls. In patch 5.2 of Mists of Pandaria, Warlock players working on the Black Harvest scenario could enter a special version of the Black Temple, and here's what unfolded in the Shrine of Lost Souls. The powers of this room are not unlike the original Well of Eternity on Azeroth. So this is how Illidan bound so many demons to his will. Yes, the payment for the demon's service was to drink from the energy of this place. By feeding upon this place's power, they were broken free from their addiction to the Legion's magic. I believe this is the original power source he intended to offer the Blood Elves to free them from their addiction to the Sunwell, but for some reason he didn't let them near it. What? You have no proof of such a claim. Didn't you notice? The demons under Illidan's command were free of the entropic, fell green corruption that pervades the Legion. This is actually all pretty compelling, and fits with all the TBC era information that exists in the game. And whether or not the writers intended for this to be the secret of the shrine back in the day, we eventually did get this conclusion a few years later. You can take this more modern lore with a grain of salt if you wish, but at the most basic level it just makes sense the vial would be used here, in Illidan's stronghold, to create an energy source that's readily accessible. It's not certain why Illidan wouldn't share this energy with the Blood Elves to treat their magical addiction, but it's possible he had doubts about Kael'thas betraying him if he became too powerful, which he did do by the way, or perhaps the energy source wasn't compatible with the elves for some reason. What's also interesting is that in the Black Harvest instance, Warlock players fight a reanimated version of the Reliquary boss, this time a version called the Essence of Order, who even remarks, "Face the souls of those your kind doomed to perish, Warlock." which is likely a reference to all the soul sacrifice and warlock rituals performed during the days of the Old Horde. The Illidan novel from 2016 also gives us one more pertinent detail. To complete his plan of opening a portal to the planet Argus, Illidan used a soul device to capture the tormented souls of Auchindoun, which I mentioned earlier, and it's very likely the souls were dropped off here at the Reliquary as an addition to the energy pool. That's a lot of info for such a strange, officially unexplained boss, and after piecing all these bits of evidence and theory together, I can confidently say this is the likely story of the Devourer here in the Black Temple, along with the soul energy and the Vial of Eternity. But it's possible there are other explanations, and I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments. It's the weirdest boss in the Burning Crusade in my opinion, and seeing as it's not only referenced in the next expansion, but also one over 5 years later, I'm led to believe there's more to this entity than first meets the eye, and is worthy of analysis and appreciation. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you learned something new today, and as you prepare to enter the Black Temple and TBC Anniversary again soon, maybe you'll think about this encounter and its deep lore in a whole new way. A special thank you to my channel members who provide bonus support for these videos, and until next time, may the Force be with you.